Like to say good evening to everyone, and in case we don't see you all when at the end you don't stay for the whole party, we want to wish you all a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year's, because we won't see you again until after New Year's. So, but we just pray that everybody stays safe and have an enjoyable time. The first item on our agenda tonight, after calling the order, is approval of the agenda for the Culpeper County Planning Commission monthly meeting. So at this time, the chair entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise. The agenda is approved. Second is approval of our minutes of our November 9th meeting. Receive those in a packet. What's your pleasure there?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we will put the minutes in our, to record. Now we move to our old business. Oh, no, it was one thing on the approval of the agenda. We did want to move one of the items in the new business to the end. And we can, at this time, the chair entertain a motion. Has been asked to move item number 1 under new business to item number 3, and bring number 3 to 1. So to reverse those. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Okay, that has been done. Now we move to our old business. Neil?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a request by Curtis Cooper for a conditional use permit to allow the construction and operation of a private recreation facility, specifically a shooting sports facility for use by youth teams and local youth groups, called Piedmont Rod and Gun Club per Article 3-2-2.16 of the zoning ordinance and in accordance with Article 17, use permits of the zoning ordinance. The property is zoned A1 agricultural and is located off 658 Mount Pony Road in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's found on tax map 64, parcels 2E, 2F, and 40B.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, hopefully you all remember this case. It was only 2 months ago in October that you met Mr. Cooper and their request here for a conditional use permit for the shooting sports facility here in the Stevensburg district. And this property, just to call your attention to where it's located, the map on the screen shows the properties, the 3 different properties that are identified in red there. It does have a private easement, if you will, off of Mount Pony Road, which is 658 in the county. The applicant did, after our public hearing and staff comments, as well as planning commission concerns and comments that were relayed to them during their process in October, the applicant did go back to the drawing board a little bit and added to their original submission, their application package, and those were included in your packages about 2 weeks ago and were included on board docs as well. Not going to go back into the case in details unless the planning commission wants staff to do that. We certainly can, but I did want to highlight just some things that have changed in the application or have been supplemented in the application. We picked up on the following observations with these revised documents. The applicant heard the planning commission loud and clear on noise concerns. The applicant wasn't able to get an actual noise study complete or acoustic study complete before tonight, but they do have a firm retained to do such a study if needed. In the meantime, the applicant did provide some sound readings that they conducted on their own accord. That information they included in their revised application material. And of course, those readings were without any acoustic abatement or baffling or anything on the property today. As far as the neighborhood, the applicant did make a better effort this time around, or a more concentrated effort, I should say, not a better effort, but a more concentrated effort to speak to some of the neighbors that were adjacent or near this property. The applicant did share in their application revision those efforts to communicate with the surrounding property owners. They were able to talk to some, not all, and Mr. Cooper may be able to share more updates on that tonight as well if he's had any additional conversations since this was submitted 2 weeks ago. The applicant did also provide additional details regarding the range design, and that was included in their revised package as well. Just shows the different areas located on the property that they're proposing, including the berm design details, some preliminary stormwater layout, as well as baffling and safety considerations as well. The applicant did provide a little more detail as well on their operation, or planned operations, including some insurance information that they're committed to providing for the property and for the facility, and then talked about staffing and things like that as well. Staff is supportive of these revisions because we do feel like this effort in the past couple months has brought it closer in line with what you would expect for Article 17 standards for safety and welfare of the neighborhood. And just as a reminder to the commission, that is a standard that you'll use with all use permits. There's three main things: the comprehensive plan conformance, making sure that it's not detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property improvements in the area, and making sure that it's not going to adversely affect health or safety of persons that reside or work in the area. Staff is glad to see that the applicant is pursuing engagement with a noise study with a firm to do that. I do think that's critical, if not necessarily for the issuance of the permit, but prior to commencement of activities, so that we would have a baseline if the permit is to be approved, and to make sure that it's in compliance with the noise ordinance as well. Mr. Chairman, I'll close with some potential conditions. If the commission is inclined to recommend approval to the board, just as a reminder, we have taken 60 days. The code does give the planning commission 60 days to look at an application. We have taken that now. So staff's recommendation is that you do move it forward to the board either way, with some sort of recommendation either for approval or denial. But if the planning commission is inclined to recommend approval, we did list out 8 suggested conditions, and I can read those, but those were in your report for tonight. But they're pretty simple conditions. We tried to keep them simple on purpose so that they're easier to enforce and administer. But there may be some tweaking of those, and we're certainly happy to work with the commission to do that if necessary. And Mr. Cooper, as you can see on the front row, is back. He can answer any questions in further detail as well. So,
Okay. Thank you very much, Sam. The applicant or representative, just come forth, give your full name for the record, please, sir.
Curtis Cooper. And good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I only have a few updates from what was submitted on the 28th. So I did speak with Mr. Marco Mendez as well as Mr. Hugo Mendez. They are related. Mr. Marco Mendez is 21134, which is the location where the right-of-way is, so the adjoining property. And then Mr. Hugo Mendez is the adjoining property to the north. Spoke with both of them. They're reviewed the plans with them and what we're planning to do, and they're perfectly fine with everything that we discussed. And I showed them the actual, site plan that we had, and they're happy with everything. Kind of had to explain a right-of-way with the stipulation that I'm not an attorney, so that he would understand
Sure.
what we could and couldn't do as far as access, getting back to the property. But they were both fine with what we had planned. I also spoke with Mr. Andrew Bennett, and so he is not a homeowner there. He owns the parcel where that little square is down on the lower portion. He is fine with selling. He is actually looking to sell, and so we're actually drawing up a letter of intent for him to purchase those 5 acres. And his son and daughter are now on our waiting list for our shooting team. So we were also assigned a range action specialist from National Shooting Sports Foundation, and it is Clark Nexon, a firm in Roanoke. Our point of contact is Mr. Mike Stillwell. They do a lot of law enforcement ranges and as well as Army ranges here in the U.S. They were assigned on Friday. I did a Zoom with Mr. Stillwell on this Monday, and he did a quick, what's called a preliminary assessment, which he thought was excellent as far as the direction of shooting. And so they have a software that gives a cursory surface damage zone. And that is an Army term that determines, okay, how far will a 9mm travel from the point of shooting? How far will a .223 travel, and how far will a .308 travel? Those are basically the rounds that they use. And so most of the safety zone or the damage zone was in that area where it's owned by Pardee. So 223 and below is well within that area. So if someone were to shoot a .223 round and it didn't hit anything at all, it would still fall within that undeveloped Pardee timber area. And he said what we would do, so his role would be, he would come in and actually do a formal range zone, assessment of a damage zone, and help us if we needed to, possibly turn the range area 5 to 10 degrees to where we're in a better area far away. So that said, he said, if there's a .308 or something like that, that's in an area like that, we would just have to put in special terms such as no shooting prone on a .308, with a .308. So little things that he said can do like that can absolutely prevent anything from heading far downrange. They come out and do a range assessment after everything is built to check sight lines, and they actually use lasers to make sure everything is held within the range as far as shooting and ricochets. That's about all that I have for updates. So,
Okay, thank you. Seem like you've been busy.
yeah.
Do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Mr. Price, you can go ahead.
Sure, thanks for coming back, and thanks for the obvious work that you put into this since our last meeting. Just a couple things I'd like to ask. You spoke to at least one person down there at the church. Did anybody at the church express any views about your operations on Sundays?
No, they didn't express any concerns. And we covered a lot of territory. We discussed, I guess there's a pool there that they're having trouble finding lifeguards, and so they're trying to open that on Sunday, but without the lifeguards, they can't open it. And so, they didn't discuss specifically, that they would have concerns with us shooting on Sundays or Sunday afternoons.
Okay. Sam mentioned that the staff had recommended 8 conditions that should be considered as we determine whether or not to recommend approval. So are you prepared to comply with all 8 of those conditions? Are you familiar with them?
No, not currently. Were they posted or?
Well, they were part of what we had posted on Board Docs for the meeting tonight.
Oh, okay. I did not see those.
Okay. It includes a commercial entrance, which I think we discussed last time, but a number of other things.
I'm assuming a lot of it is what was in the preliminary.
And the engineering firm that you've engaged to do the noise study, so they can start work in February. Any idea when they would be done?
I didn't get an answer about that.
Okay.
Seems like all of those firms were extremely busy.
Yeah.
Excuse me for just a second. If you would just close that door, that'd be fine. Okay, that's no problem. Just close.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, if this goes through us tonight, Sam, how much time before the board has before they look at it? Because I think it would be useful to have that sound study done, the noise study by the engineering firm by the time the board looks at it. I just don't know if we've got enough time before the board has to see it.
Not given the normal course, we would not, because the board would actually see it as early as the first Tuesday in January.
I see.
The applicant could request the application be tabled until February, if it would be done, which again would be that first Tuesday of that month. And the board, of course, could take an action themselves and defer action to a later time as well.
Okay.
But normal course, we would set this up, whatever action the planning commission takes tonight, to be advertised for that first Tuesday in January with the board of supervisors.
Okay.
Can I ask a staff question?
Go ahead, go right ahead.
So, if this person spent money and got this sound report, what, I guess we're trying to make sure it stays under the county decibel level that is in the ordinance?
Yeah.
And suppose it doesn't?
Yeah, I think that'd be one goal to achieve that. I mean, you do actually, if it's a permitted facility at that point, it's not going to fall under the noise ordinance directly because it actually would be exempt at that point from the noise ordinance, believe it or not. But it would establish a baseline to work with, and I think that would be important, not only for the county, but for the applicant too, moving forward.
In case you had a complaint down the road?
Yes.
Right.
So the caliber that you're talking about is for youth. So 223, 308, 22, what's the skeet? What is that, a shotgun?
Yes, ma'am, 12 gauge.
So those are the kind of weapons, that's it, because it's all youth programs.
This is a rod and gun club, so it is open to adults also,
Adults are coming too.
Yes, ma'am. And so, yeah, probably the highest range would probably be at 308, someone sighting a hunting rifle, something like that. And that would be within the range area, not outside of it, so.
Do you anticipate that they would, all those calibers would stay within that county, within the decibel level of our county?
Yes, so we shot,
You have silencers? I don't know.
we shot a 12 gauge at the center of the property about where the skeet and field, the skeet and trap fields will be. And that's where we got the readings that we.
The readings that are in here.
Yes, ma'am. And so that's probably going to be about the loudest that doesn't, everything else is held within the berm. So the 9mm pistols and the rifles be within the 21-foot bermed areas and areas.
So if a applicant came, a range user came in there and said, I want to shoot something bigger, you have to say no, or you have to have, they log in what kind of weapon they're going to use?
So part of the insurance is that we stipulated, and so we agreed to the terms with the insurance that we're going to be having. And we agreed to not do like a 50 caliber or one of the
Okay.
rifles, so,
Okay.
yeah. So, a lot of it's probably gonna be just hunting rifles, people who can't sight in on their own property but wanna go out and hunt, type deal, so.
That's all I had on.
Anyone else?
I got a few questions.
Go ahead, Katie, go ahead.
So I just have a couple. So if you are a member of the club and you come in, like, what is that process? Obviously, I would assume they have to sign in, scan in, something like that. Are guns checked then and there?
Yes, ma'am, they'll come in, meet with the staff who's gonna be working, they'll have to sign in, sheets, and what we're envisioning is kind of, we have to kind of keep track of rounds for EPA, and so, here's what you're gonna be shooting a box of, and it'll be entered into our EPA, database or info that we have to keep. That way, we're gonna track what they're shooting and how many rounds are downrange, so that we can reclaim at the time that it needs to be reclaimed.
Okay. And then, you talked about, where's it at? Any instructors that are not, any instructors not operating under NRA instructors insurance or as part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes must provide their own insurance. I mean, do you see this being a large number or?
Predominantly, those instructors are gonna be NRA instructors that I've ever dealt with, and those that I know who will be there doing instructions, so.
Okay, I just wanna make sure like we're not having some like Walmart license come in there
Yeah,
that,
and I don't even, I'm not sure of any other, so if there is one that is it would be off the wall to me, and I'd question it further.
Okay.
So.
And then you talked about with the National Shooting Sports Foundation, training your members to become range safety officers. Is this, I'm assuming, would also be required for your employees to be certified as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and
Okay.
they would have to attend OSHA training for lead exposure, and there's a number of things that they have to, that the employees and staff would have to do.
Okay, and then I think we talked about this a little bit last time too. So guns that would be stored on site in the gun safes, those guns will be registered to,
The club, yes.
okay, and that will
The
be,
youth club.
okay,
And so we're only talking about 12 gauge, 20 gauge shotguns and 22 long rifles.
okay,
Nothing other than that
okay,
at the facility.
all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I guess a couple things, maybe more for Sam. First question. You had mentioned that if we approve the rezoning application, that it overrides the noise ordinance to some extent, right? So could you not condition that as a requirement, that you must meet, that way if it gets approved, then you wouldn't have to worry about that?
Yes, that's a good point, Commissioner Kilby. The board does have flexibility in issuing conditions
Yeah.
for conditional use permits, so it certainly could. And you do have a baseline in the noise ordinance, even if a club or something like this may be an exemption general. So just as an example, like your baseline maximum decibel level for during the day for your agricultural rural areas is 75. For nighttime, it's 65. So, you know, those are this is different because that's really more for an ongoing type noise typically. This is gonna be, you know, an infrequent, you know, different sound, obviously, so.
So I think from, if you look at condition number 3, it talks about forthcoming site plan shall provide details as presented by the applicant and application materials submitted November 28th regarding range layout, safety berm, 21-foot acoustic baffling, et cetera. I would like to revise that ordinance that basically says that the applicant would not exceed the current noise ordinance as in the ordinance today. In addition, the applicant would complete the noise acoustic study and any other items that may be determined based on the noise acoustic study would be added to the site to reduce the noise. That would be a condition I would like to add. Basically, that you're gonna do the study, and whatever comes out of the study, that you're gonna basically do what, you know, we need some additional trees, we need some additional baffles, whatever that may be.
It's our
So-
goal to be in compliance.
Yeah. So I think that would be a reasonable request. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Bird?
I have a couple of questions. Just as I was looking at conditions for other shooting ranges we've approved in the county, one thing to bring it in sort of a parallel line, would you consider moving a few of your insurance conditions over to our conditions? And especially not having 50 caliber firearms, no full automatic weapons, and no incendiary rounds. Would that be a
I have
problem?
no problem with that.
Okay.
We'll have to do that for insurance compliance anyway, so that's perfectly fine.
Okay, that appears in some other properties. And some of the other conditions I ran into were, they actually state the presence of a range officer. You've noted some of that. Do you find that redundant, or you're gonna need it anyway, or and it's sort of for staff, is our regulation gonna be redundant by the rules that you follow?
Yeah. We would have to have range officers, you know, on site while someone is shooting. And our goal is to really, to have as many of those as possible. And so, you know, we're going to incentivize our members to go and actually take the range safety officer training, so.
Okay. And then I guess lastly, you mentioned the hours of operation shall be limited to Sundays, 1 to 5, and I'm okay with that. Some of the other conditions, other properties limit shooting on the other days, like say from 8 a.m. to 1 hour after sunset. Sam, how do you feel about nailing down the hours, or do you think I know you might have mentioned it if you thought it was important.
Yeah, and I will share, you know, after I reread that suggested condition that's probably poorly written the way it is, because you could interpret that to only Sundays, and that was not the intent of that. The intent was to limit the hours on Sunday from 1 to 5, and everything else would be as Mr. Cooper had presented before. But the commission could certainly we have on others similar type activities, could certainly recommend, you know, hours of operation, so.
think
What
that may have
hours
been-
had you intended, Monday through Saturday, for instance?
I think that may have been on the original submission, maybe. But yeah, it would be 8 till dark or
Okay.
dusk. No nighttime shooting at all.
Okay. And some of them had a limitation of calendar days a month that you were in operation, but you're planning on being in operation 7 days a week if possible, right?
Well, we would need a couple of days to, restock the range and clean and all that
So your
stuff.
days off would be
5, 6
dictated by
days.
you and your own
Yes, sir.
personal operations?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I think, we talked about the staff and the security out there, and where are we now with that, from your perspective? Where are we with,
As far as with the youth or while youth
no,
training?
who's gonna be watching,
So
you know,
there'll be
this,
at
facility?
least 2 trained staff members there. On their busy days, such as Saturdays, it'll probably swell to as much as 4 or 5. And again, if someone is logging on and we know that how many people are gonna be there because they've logged on online to come out and reserve their times, we'll be able to staff to those times. So if there's a rainy Wednesday where one person is gonna be out there, maybe have 1 trained staff member there. So it'll kind of fluctuate with what we're seeing with the membership wanting to come out on certain days. The staffing will, so.
Okay,
And really, so a rod and gun club is, a lot of it is the members are really, again, trained to, be that range safety officer. And so, the more that we train, a gentleman can come out and bring his family of 3 or 4, well, he's the range safety officer at that location watching his family. So, we're gonna be incentivizing, like I said, more and more people to have this skill of being a range safety officer,
okay,
so.
all right. And the ages of them, is it a mandatory, they have to be a certain age before they can be, considered security?
Well, I think the NRA requires 21 to be,
Oh, okay.
to be a range safety officer, yeah.
Okay, all right. Last thing that I want to ask is, you seem like a real nice person, man of morals, integrity, don't have a concern with that. Can someone else come in and lease this from you, or, someone else with a gun, whatever, might not be a club, but they want to, can they just come in, someone else just come in and lease it the day you're off, or you're closed, someone else comes in with a gun club or a club that they have and just,
No,
shoot and,
no, sir, I'm not interested in that.
Not even the sheriff's department.
We would still want to have our own staff there,
But you
And
would rent it to them.
yes, ma'am. But as far as another, we understand our responsibility, and so I personally wouldn't be comfortable with allowing that to happen on a day, a day rental or something.
and your insurance allows you to do that?
That's something that I'm not even sure that I approached with them regarding, because it's not something that I'm interested in. Did you have something in specific, or?
No,
Is it-
when you give it up, or when you decide to get out of it, you get it established, and then all of a sudden, we have, opportunities for others to come in and do some things that might not be so good for their community.
Yes, sir.
So, it's a lot of things, that are going on right now that would concern me. You're gonna follow the rules, but with the type of weapons that are used and all, and it only takes one time that somebody goes out there and use something that, reaches past, the guidelines that you have set up for it.
Understood.
So,
And again,
Can't transfer.
I plan
Did
on,
it say that?
being here, Lord willing, a good while.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, we have a great team also.
Yes.
It's not just me
Yeah.
making
Okay.
decisions, my wife and my kids. And
All right.
so,
All right. The dollar can drive us to do a whole lot of things. And, you know, people can offer, you know, so much. And as we just see here, that it's not transferable. Anyway, right, Sam?
for number one.
Staff would suggest a condition in this particular case for this use that it is granted exclusively for Piedmont Rod and Gun Club and its members, and that any transfer of that permit would have to have prior permission from the Board of Supervisors, so.
Okay. You good with that? Okay. I'm good with that, too. Any other discussion? Yes,
I
Katie?
have one question for staff. So with that proposed condition, I guess I just want to make sure that that's right. I mean, does it need to be Piedmont Rod and Gun, or does it need to be Curtis Cooper?
I don't know how Mr. Cooper's acquiring the property or in what name potentially he'll be acquiring the property. They've applied for the permit, and they're, presumably will be calling it Piedmont Rod and Gun Club. But you could add his name to that permit, and I think Mr. Cooper would be fine with that. But I don't know how they're structuring, and maybe we need to get more information on how they're structuring the organization to be able to tie it to that organization. But that's a good question, and I don't know if that would cover it or complicate it, unfortunately, by adding that name, so.
Okay.
It would definitely limit it, it would narrow it, which staff would be comfortable with. I just don't know if it works for the organization or not, so.
So then I guess my question is to you, Mr. Cooper. I mean, you own the land, correct?
We have the land under contract, correct? Yes.
Okay, so is that going to be Piedmont Rod and Gun, or is that going to be you as an individual?
So it will be under a corporation.
Okay.
I will probably be the president. As far as we will need to, I'm good with either way. So even if you want to structure it where it's the corporation and myself, that's just a matter of signing documents. It's not a huge addition. And so I'm fine with that addition, you know, if it's me personally, to put on more safeguards. But yeah, it'll probably be structured as a corporation so that I can refinance and pay off the investors to get us in the facility and get the facility built.
So is it the plan for the corporation then to be called Piedmont Rod and Gun Club, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Keith.
Mr. Cooper, have you thought through what your response plan is if you have a gunshot wound on site? I mean, because it's a remote site. So what happens if somebody actually gets shot?
So again, I would reiterate, shooting sports is the safest sport in the country, as a caveat. As part of the NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, and our insurance, we're gonna have a plan for that, an
Okay.
emergency plan, in place. And so, I'm not personally going to be responsible for it. I'm gonna put people who know that much better than I do, in charge of that as far as the response plan. So, not as of yet, there isn't one.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. And I think, Sam, the last thing is the distances or the types of guns that they are able to use out there now that would be included here. Will it always be there for them to change and go to any longer range guns? Will they have to come back?
Yeah, if the board ended up adopting a condition that limited the type of a firearm or
Yes.
caliber weapon, then yeah, any change to that, you know,
They'd have
Piedmont
to-
Rod and Gun Club would have to come back and petition the board to have that changed.
Okay,
so.
all right, okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cooper? Done very well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay. At this time, we had opened the public hearing and closed the public hearing at the last meeting, but is it anyone who came here just to speak on this? And Planning Commission, would we like to we would have to vote to open the public hearing, because we didn't advertise it this time. But if we would like to give anyone who might have come tonight an opportunity to 2 minutes to speak on it. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Okay. At this time, we will open a public hearing. If you come forth, give your name for the record and try to keep it within 2 minutes. We appreciate it. Okay? Raise your hand. Okay.
My name is Carol Benson. I live a little west of the property.
Can you just speak, your
This
voice
way?
is so
Little
soft
bit
that the
better?
microphone can't pick it
Okay.
up.
Carol Benson is my name.
Yes.
I live to the west of this property, and I'm extremely concerned about noise. I understand, listening tonight, the noise testing and the noise parameters and the noise acceptance is still sort of up in the air. I'm listening to this side of the room. Once this endeavor is real, if it gets to that, then they're sort of exempt from other county noise requirements. That's a little concerning to me, but, you know, we live in the county. It's just nice to have peace and quiet. No PTSD issues, no livestock issues, no, you know, it's just enjoyable, especially on the weekends. So I would say noise is number one for me, and I'm not sure where to go from here if we don't have the proper noise testing and definition of noise acceptance, short-term, long-term. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Declare the public hearing closed. Sam, if, with all those different stipulations when it comes to the noise and all, yeah, it's just going to be up to the Board of Supervisors to put whatever stipulations they want. So whoever's her supervisor, I think it's a good idea for her to go to the supervisor and express that to him. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is in the Stevensburg district, but I can certainly clarify that. But Ms. Benson will also definitely have the board will have to, whenever, whether it's January or when it may be,
Sure.
if the applicant moves forward with this, if you all move, they'll have to have at least one more public hearing too. That will be advertised as a public hearing for that use permit hearing, so.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
But we can condition it tonight.
Yes.
on the
You-
requirements that I mentioned.
Yes, yes.
The planning commission certainly can recommend those conditions, and in this case, I think it would be helpful, so.
Okay. And it'd be good all around for everyone. Okay.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, at this time, no other discussion. We ready for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Ms. Thornhill.
I recommend that we send this case with approval. It's case number U2240-23-1, Piedmont Rod and Gun Club use permit request to the supervisors with the following conditions. This is different than what I have here? Okay, okay. First of all, the first condition is the permit is granted for exclusive use by Piedmont Rod and Gun Club, Curtis Cooper, and any corporation that becomes the landowner and its members. It is not transferable to any other landowner or user without prior permission by the Culpeper County Board of Supervisors. Number 2, the applicant shall be required to submit a site plan in accordance with Article 20 of the zoning ordinance prior to commencement of any proposed uses. Number 3, the forthcoming site plan shall provide details as presented by the applicant in application material submitted November 28th, 2023 regarding the range layout, safety berm details, 21 feet tall, acoustic baffling, etc. Number 4, I can't read that. I'm going to add it at the end, yeah. All right. Number 4, the applicant shall maintain and preserve a riparian buffer of 50 feet from any perennial waterway that traverses the property. Number 5, a formal tree preservation area or a non-disturbance buffer shall be reserved, created on the areas adjacent to the perimeter of parcels. This should include a minimum of 200-foot buffer from all use areas. Number 6, the applicant shall provide a commercial entrance in accordance with minimum VDOT standards prior to commencement of operations. Number 7, the hours of operation, I think, are Monday through Saturday from 8 o'clock to sunset, and on Sunday from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Number 8, the applicant shall provide the county, the Office of the Planning and Zoning, evidence of insurance coverage prior to commencement of operations. The minimum amount per claim shall be $1 million per claim and $2 million per aggregate. And we're going to add a condition, I think, separate, number 9. And we're going to say that the applicant will revise the applicant so that it does not exceed, that the decibel level does not exceed the county ordinance, and complete the study in compliance with county ordinance. And also any items found from that study will be enforced. Okay, then I have one more, number 10. As part of the coverage, you've agreed to the following conditions: no modern .50 caliber firearms to be used, no fully automatic firearms to be used, no incendiary explosive rounds, including tracer, tannerite, dragon's breath, etc., no alcohol sales or consumption of any kind. We will not rent firearms for use. Youth do not rent firearms, they are assigned. Commissioners, is that all of it?
That's it? Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I-
Mr. Price?
Hey, Sam, early on in the meeting, you mentioned that we had to basically make 3 findings, that it's consistent with the comp plan, it's not detrimental to health and welfare, and then there was a third one. Do those things have to be explicitly included in the motion?
No, it should be referenced, if you want to just reference Article 17 standards, that's fine too.
Okay.
But it's a use permit and those are the set standards.
I
so.
got you.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Being none, all in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed likewise? Okay. The motion has been approved and will be sent forward to the board for their approval, okay? And Mr. Cooper, and family, I commend you all for the challenge that's ahead of you, and just in the way you presented yourself here with information. We know you'll do a good job and put the county and its citizens, especially in that area, first. So we wish you the best, okay, as you go forward, okay? Okay. Now we move to our new business, and the first case will be the original case number 2. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a combined case number, case Z 46023-1 and case U 2243-23-1. It's a request by Cliff Schul of Lock and Roll Self-Storage LLC to rezone 5.01 acres from R1 residential to CS commercial services, and to allow the construction and operation of a self-storage facility, including outdoor storage of RVs, boats, vehicles per Article 6, Section 6.1C-2-3, and in accordance with Article 17, use permits of the zoning ordinance. The property is located along 694 Ira Hoffman Lane in the Catalpa Magisterial District. It's found on tax map 31, parcel 62A.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, with last case, the parcel in red there is the parcel that we're looking at for a rezoning in this case. The rezoning specifically, at this point would be used for storage, as Neil read there, and to the record, for self-storage facility with some limited outdoor storage as well. You can see where the location is. Right now, the surrounding zoning that you see in yellow is our R1, which is a low-density residential. It's undeveloped, largely. The area there to the north is an existing mobile home park right here that you're familiar with, that's been there for a number of years. And the green areas to the south is an existing farm, but it's zoned rural area today. Just off to the screen is a major intersection, or on the screen, I should say, to the east of the property is a major intersection of 229 and Ira Hoffman, just to give you a better idea of where we are. Staff did review this as well as our normal agency reviews, as far as agency reviewers, as far as VDOT, Soil and Water Conservation District, the town of Culpeper, as far as utilities are concerned. The applicant did provide a concept plan that was in your package. They provided a narrative statement explaining their intent and use of the property as a planned storage facility. We did analyze that, and there are a couple of things I wanted to kind of scroll through relatively quickly. This just kind of, again, is just the parcel that the applicant is seeking to be rezoned. It's zoned R1 today. They're seeking a commercial services zoning for self-storage facility. Again, this is a farm here. There is a single family home right here that would be adjacent to the facility if it were to be approved. This is your comp plan. You all worked hard on this last year and the year before, and the board adopted it earlier this year. And the parcel here on this screen is right here where the red dot is. And the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is because this is one of the major documents that we look at for any rezoning especially. This is the future land use plan that we did adopt. You can see not far from where the applicant's seeking the rezoning, we do show some mixed use potential as well as some medium to high density residential in that area as well. We do show in the current future land use map to this area to be low density residential, and that's currently how it's zoned. I don't have the other map, but one thing that I did want to point out that there's also additional maps, as you recall, that are in the comp plan. We do show a future growth area for this area. If you remember, that's pointed out in the staff report as well. It is nearby the urban service area for water and sewer. So we are projecting, future development in this area. And in staff's opinion, it is within close proximity where we did show some mixed use or commercial potentially at that corner. And is not a use that would be a negative draw to any future residential uses to the south of that property in staff's opinion. Typically, self-storage facilities are quiet. They usually have a low traffic yield for the most part, and usually don't have a lot of fanfare to go along with it because it's just storage. Impacts relating to the health, safety, and welfare. In this case, primarily centered kind of around transportation for staff. This kind of shows the applicant's concept of what it could look like as they move forward. And to get your bearings here on this plan, Ira Hoffman Extended is right here to the north. The entrance for the property is just off the screen here, and they would come down what is known as Maple Springs Lane, soon to be, well, officially Richmond Road. It shows as Maple Springs today. Only Commissioner Price picked up on all the complicating factors. We didn't realize that we had an issue in the field. That's being addressed. It will be Richmond Road, not Maple Springs Lane. Maple Springs Lane will be just off the screen and actually just be the driveway for the farm that's there to the south. Richmond Road is a split road now. It was former 729, but now it's split. You'll have a part coming from 229 going to the north and dead ends. There's a private connection in the middle. It's not a public street connection, even though it's open. And then you'll have a second section of Richmond Road that exists and dead ends from the north to going to the south. The applicant proposes an entrance here, kind of tight to their property line. And again, that one single family residence is on this lot here. They do show some screening and buffering along Ira Hoffman, which staff supports here. It would be potentially an underground stormwater facility, and then multiple storage buildings on the property with some street landscaping along this Maple Spring or Richmond Road to the south. I'm going to go back, Mr. Chairman, to the case map, just to kind of, one of the issues or concerns that VDOT brought to the county's attention, and you saw in their letter, was the intersection itself with Richmond Road and Ira Hoffman Lane. It's a fairly wide intersection. You do have a 4-lane right-of-way, even though 2 lanes are built today, up into pretty much where that entrance is, and then it goes down to a 2-lane right-of-way back out to 229. Sight distance is pretty good. If you look at Google Earth Maps, this bank was cut back when this road improvement was built. Staff doesn't have a major concerns with the entrance. What I'm going to draw attention to the Planning Commission, and one of the things that we brought out in the staff report, is we do show in the comp plan the potential of widening 694 in the future. If you remember, Ira Hoffman extended that now goes to 522. It's a 2-lane road, but it was planned to be a 4-lane section in the future, sometime in the future. We would expect that 4-lane section to continue all the way to 229 with some intersection improvements with a planned potential roundabout at that intersection in 5 to 6 years. That being said, we want to make sure that this project or any other development project that were to happen on either side of Ira Hoffman, we have enough room for right-of-way for not only the road expansion, but for potential shared use path or pedestrian or bike facility as well. Staff did point out in the recommendations, and the applicant has received those comments and actually worked on that, and the applicant can explain in a little bit more detail of what they're doing to achieve that reservation of right-of-way for the county. Taking into account all those things that I mentioned with the comprehensive plan, staff does feel that the proposed use does fit the general long-range expectation for the area. It is shown, as I mentioned, in a identified future growth area. It's shown within the urban services boundary, not far from an area that we labeled as mixed use. The proposed use could generate, additional tax revenue for the county. The applicant can screen the property fairly well using existing landscaping, but then supplemental landscaping. So those things, in staff's opinion, were supportive of the comprehensive plan. Future usage would be limited, and the applicant actually did proffer to use it for this facility, for this type of facility only, which narrows the scope of what any other type of commercial uses could happen on the property, which staff supports that proffer statement. The applicant stated that they would have no concerns hooking up to public water and sewer if it were to become available. Right now, it's not on site. In the meantime, they probably would make use of a private well and septic for this facility. Staff does agree with the comment from the Stormwater Conservation District that additional screening could be provided, and that's why I brought this back up to this adjacent lot, from, I don't know how tight that septic field has to get to that property line, and maybe the applicant addressed that, but it would not hurt. Now, these are tree save areas, but we might not hurt to try to get a little bit of landscaping here to buffer that residential lot from a potential building that's right here on this part of the property. And, Mr. Chairman, I think those were the main issues that staff had brought up, and the applicant's fully aware of those, and like I said, is attempting to address those now. I'd be happy to answer questions. I know Mr. Baines with the applicant is the applicant representative, and the applicant themselves are here as well. I don't think they have a big fancy presentation, but I know they can answer some questions, so.
Okay. All right, thank you, Sam. Yes.
I have a staff question. I think it's staff question. So in the expansion process of Ira Hoffman, right, would they go on both sides of Ira Hoffman to expand, or can they catch it from the other side? Because this looks kind of tight to berm it.
Commissioner Thorne, that's a great question. Right now, we do show potential, like I said, widening of the road, but staff would not have a preference, or wouldn't have a preference on either side. I mean, you're going to have a restriction here anyway. There's a fairly significant tributary that traverses right in here. It's going to be complicated to widen through that area. But once you get to where the applicant proposes their property, and then on the other side, the north side of Ira Hoffman, the right-of-way could be expanded on either side. In staff's opinion, and I think the applicant's going to share with you here in a minute, they're going to propose that the right-of-way for any future come from the north side. Right. And that makes sense from a land use perspective, given that this side of the property is a little bit narrow. And Staff's main objective is just to let the landowner, the current landowner especially, know that we need to reserve an area for future expansion. And we would rather do that through the zoning process. Once a building is there and landscaping is there, it's gonna be hard to work with in that in the future.
So is there a site plan that shows?
The applicant did,
Reservation?
they did provide a concept plan currently, and I
Concept.
think they've tweaked that concept plan a little bit. Unfortunately, it just came in this evening, but they've tweaked it since what you're looking at on the screen to show potential future right-of-way to the north of our Hoffman, and not, that would actually not encumber this commercial plan area here, so. And staff's comfortable with that. We would need to get that commitment preferably in writing as a proffer statement somehow through the process, though.
But does VDOT VDOT should have a say-so though, right? 'Cause
VDOT does, but right now, without any concrete plans or a known
Right.
date to do the expansion,
Right.
they would do that in the future with the county.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Sam, the first thing that struck me as I went through this was that there are 3 proffers, and they're all very sort of generic. And so it just seems to me with a rezoning like this, and some of the concerns that you mentioned, I mean, we should nail that down in the proffer process. I mean, wouldn't you think that the proffers need to be developed a bit more?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Price, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, there certainly is an opportunity to tweak or work that proffer statement a little bit and incorporate, what the applicant representative has actually done here recently to try to meet some of staff and VDOT's concerns as far, especially for reservation of right-of-way in the future. The Planning Commission with the rezoning, you certainly could defer action tonight if you thought that was the best move. But I would want you to at least hear from the applicant tonight, and see what their plans are, and try to let them answer any questions tonight. But you certainly have that ability with the rezoning to extend your review time, to work on that, so.
One other thing, I didn't see any reference in here, even in the VDOT comments, about requiring a commercial entrance. It looks like the concept plan, it looks like a commercial entrance. I would think this type of facility would require that, but I didn't see reference to it yet.
It would, especially right here, and you're right, I believe, and Mr. Baines can address that specifically, but that looks like a minimum commercial standard apron here along this part of the road. And when you go back out to Richmond Road and Ira Hoffman, it is a commercial standard entrance now. There are no turn lanes specifically, although you have pretty wide shoulders, actually, right there. But that entrance itself is pretty wide. And VDOT actually installed that with the project when we did the Ira Hoffman extension right there, so.
what's the reason it's called Richmond Road? I thought that was Route 1.
What's that?
Richmond Road, where'd the name, I
I
Who
don't
picked
remember
the
the
name?
naming. I don't know how the naming came about on that, so.
seems odd, because it's a little short. Do you know, Pam?
It's a little bit,
I mean, because it used to be Eggbornsville Road, correct? We let the citizens that lived on that short
They
section,
picked it.
they picked the road
Okay.
name out.
I don't know, it's a long way to Richmond, and I thought that was over near Richmond, okay?
Wow.
Sam, I have a question. There are currently other properties already zoned for this use available in the county, correct?
there are some commercial services, which is the zoning district, and there's some light industrial or even heavy industrial, that's available, or zoned. I don't know if it's available, but it's zoned, that could allow for this type of use, yes.
The photos in here are the style they're gonna do it. These photos that are in here.
The applicant did submit some photos of some examples of what it could look like. And they would, I believe, the proffer statement does commit to some architectural, embellishment and features. And staff would encourage, we've been, I think, fairly successful in Culpeper and getting some of our self-storage facilities to look pretty good.
I agree, but some of these pictures are pretty industrial looking versus some that look more.
They are, and they may actually be from facilities that are in Culpeper, already today, so.
Okay, at this time, is the applicant or representative here for the applicant stand forth or come forth and give your full name for the record and speak directly into that microphone?
Cliff Shaw, how y'all doing?
Doing fine, sir.
Lee Baines, civil engineer representative.
If he needs to lift that microphone up, I think it lifts up.
Probably does, he's pretty tall.
Does it? It used to, does it still? Okay, yeah, just, no, the whole piece.
We'll just talk real loud, how about that?
Yeah, we don't want him to hurt himself.
Thank you for entertaining our application tonight. We appreciate that. As Sam has alluded to, we have been working since the application submission on the comments that we received from VDOT and from part of the staff report and also from Culpeper Soil and Water District. You know, the Soil and Water District comments are pretty basic. We don't have any problem with any of those. You know, most of the questions are revolving around VDOT and the right-of-way. And I did actually have an exhibit, like you were talking about, for what we would propose on a right-of-way reservation. Unfortunately, I got that to Sam and his team about 20 minutes before I got over here, so they weren't able to incorporate that into the presentation. I did bring a paper copy of it. I don't know if that's appropriate, Sam, to provide that. I've got one copy. I can provide that to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, if the chairman wants to accept that, and
Yeah. Does anyone need to see that? Okay. Go ahead, give it. Yes. And let him,
What that exhibit, it's a two-page exhibit, and the first page is going to show you an overall view that includes the site, and our Hoffman all the way to the 229 intersection. And then the second page is going to show you a blow-up more of the site and what we propose more specifically along the frontage of the property. Now, I was requesting some information because I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel. I was hoping that maybe VDOT had looked at an alignment, since we do have improvements that come pretty close to this property. And unfortunately, there isn't any design information between the 729 intersection and the 229 intersection. So I wanted to try to get a better idea of what type of right-of-way would be required. And VDOT has, one of their comments is four-lane accommodation, and the multi-use trail. So in a nutshell, and I don't have a section shown on the plan, but basically to come up with what should be about 120-foot right-of-way minimum. That would give you enough room for a central median, a 15, 16-foot wide median that could be used for left turn lanes as needed, 2 through lanes on each side, and a right turn lane on each side. And then on one side, you would have the section, the offset, which is I think an 8-foot or 8.5-foot offset to a 10-foot multi-use trail, and then a 6.5-foot offset to the right-of-way. All of that would fit within a 120-foot right-of-way. It seems to equate pretty much to what's on the western bypass, I think is what it's called, and that's about what's there now. My belief in discussions with Sam is that this section may be a little bit different than what you see between 729 and 522. That's going to be a more rural section of road where you're going to have a grass median, maybe some crossovers, that kind of thing. What I kind of envision this to be is once you get past 729 going to 229, especially considering the type of zoning you have some mixed use that might be in here too. This is probably going to end up being more of an urban street section. So I'm thinking a raised median, 15-foot raised median, and that could be used for turn lanes, left turn lanes. That's what this is probably going to end up being. And then also the comprehensive plan is talking about a roundabout, a two-lane roundabout at 229 in Ira Hoffman. That 120-foot section and street section would be appropriate coming into that turn lane, similar to something you see down at Wendy's. You have two 4-lane section there. So that's kind of what we have in mind here, is what we'll end up doing there. So you did mention that the size of this property and taking right-of-way from it would be a little bit problematic, and we agree with that. What we propose with this exhibit is to basically hold our right-of-way on our side, and then offset that 120 feet to the north. Now, all these properties that are associated with the widening of Ira Hoffman Lane are actually owned by the same owner. And I've discussed this with him, and he's willing to go along with a widening that would actually not be on this property. We would reserve a right-of-way on his property, which is, I think, 3162 is the tax map number. So basically, it's going to be about, right now, the right-of-way is about 60 feet. It's variable, but, you know, it ranges. From where we are at Ira Hoffman, it's about 58 to 60 feet, depending on where you are. So the offset would require about a 60-foot reservation on tax map 3162. The applicants and the owner are willing to proffer this right-of-way reservation. And I will add, too, about the alignment. You know, if you look at the alignment of the right-of-way where 729 intersection is now, there might have to be some reworking to be able to tie these two right-of-ways together at some point in the future. That's why we were talking about doing a reservation, where we basically, we're agreeing to dedicate this right-of-way at some point, but we're not going to dedicate it right now because there needs to be some more design done to really figure out exactly what that alignment is and how it ties together. Now, one of the things that, one of the positives that I think, you know, the county might be interested, or VDOT might be interested in, with us offsetting the right-of-way to the north, we would actually, the property to our north, which is a single-family home, the intention would be that that right-of-way would not impact his home. And obviously, if you're going to have to go in there and do a right-of-way taking, that could include buying a house. And we, you know, by offsetting to the north, we feel like we can avoids that issue. Like I said, VDOT would have to do some reworking of the alignment of the right-of-way to the north. But that's a fairly simple thing to do, we believe.
Well, do they have a design?
No.
You said they don't.
No. As far as I know. I've sent a request to Sam and Craig Simpson, who's the Assistant Resident Engineer at VDOT. Sam responded and basically said, we don't really have anything. We talked through it, but there's no real
Well,
layout.
this is all hypothetical.
It's all hypothetical.
Yeah,
Right, so-
right now, you can kind of see where it stops.
Yeah,
This is
that's-
about where that 4-lane right-of-way stops right here, and that's why that bank was cut back. And then you can see it goes to the west from there. Once you get past this point, back to the east, all the way to the intersection of 229 and Ira Hoffman, it's just a 2-lane road, and it's about a 60-foot right-of-way through there. It gets a little bit wider towards the intersection because you have turn lanes right there at the intersection. But from the turn lane section all the way to about this point, you know, it's only about 50 to 60 feet of right-of-way in there. It's just 2-lane
Correct.
section.
Yeah, at the intersection of 229, Ira Hoffman 229 intersection, on the south, you actually have you have half of a 4-lane section there. So I don't think that really would change. It will change because of the roundabout that would be constructed.
And
But
Mr.
really,
Chairman,
the offset to the north would make more sense.
this is the house that Mr. Baines is referring to. So if you were to kind of extrapolate what's shown on here, and if you were to continue that, I can see where he's making a very good point, an observation. It would make more sense to transition that right away to the north where you don't have a house, to avoid this residential structure here. So actually, that is a really good planning consideration, to be able to shift that right away, to the north at that
So
point.
since this is a rezoning, can we require that?
You-
It's the
no.
same owner,
And-
same
and
owner.
The short answer is no. You know, the applicant can propose it, they can work on their proffer statement, and they can offer it. We've pointed it out as a consideration and as a concern to make sure it's reserved, and they're trying to achieve that, but no, we can't require it, so.
So when you say reserved, are you referring to the north side of the road with the
Yes.
current landowner?
Yes, sir.
You're not reserving an imaginary strip that limits this project or
No, sir.
changes it at this time?
No, we do propose a 25-foot right-of-way dedication along Maple Springs / Richmond Road. That's, you know, that's pretty typical. That's a prescriptive right-of-way along there now. So we typically, VDOT usually wants a 25-foot offset from the center line, which we're certainly willing to do. Unfortunately, with us, if we were to hold the center line of our Huffman as it stands now and offset 60 feet, let's just say, to our side, we would then have a 50-foot setback from that. It would probably eliminate 4 of these buildings. And it would really make the project, they'd have to think twice about doing it, I think. But we
Okay.
feel like the offset, going to the north is probably, makes a lot more sense, we believe. And at least the owner of the property is willing to agree to a proffer with this property, with this rezoning, to reserve the open space reserve the right-of-way on his property across the road. Ultimately, he's the one would have to live with these proffers anyway, because, we get this approved, we get, then the Lock and Roll is a contract owner of the property. They could certainly, walk away from the project and leave the property owner with these proffers. So he's well aware of that, and, there are, with the current land use or the future land use map that's in place, the owner of these other properties is currently considering additional rezoning, and this would play into that down the road.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, let me just ask this. So if the property owner agrees to the proffer, but then at some point later, before the road is widened, sells that northern piece, will that proffer still attach to the northern piece, even to a subsequent owner? To provide that right away, even if somebody else
believe-
buys that later on?
That's for staff?
I believe so,
You're
yes.
asking staff?
I guess staff, yeah.
I'll pass that one to Sam. but
Yeah,
I
that's,
believe so.
you don't want to step into that one.
That is something we'll have to contemplate with any type of proffer statement. But there are separate parcels. They're separated, obviously, by the existing right-of-way. The landowner, as Mr. Baines mentioned, it's the same landowner today, which is a good thing for the county as far as planning is concerned. But we would need to work, and we're probably going to need to work with the county attorney office, either with the planning commission before it comes back, if you all table it, or to the board of supervisors, to figure out how to properly make sure that we tie that property with this rezoning process. Because I think it does, in staff's opinion, it should be done through this rezoning process somehow. So,
Okay.
A couple questions. So I guess coming from the intersection 229, the intent would be to take the lane and cross over onto the opposite side, is that correct, with the right-of-way? So I guess my question, what's the posted speed on the road today?
50 miles an hour.
So if you're looking at the lane transition, right, it's L is equal to WS, so WS squared over 60. So based on the length of the transition and the speed of the road, you're gonna at least be over 540 feet for the lane transition associated with that.
Where are you speaking of?
I'm talking about, like, if you have 4 lanes at the intersection of Rixeyville Road, right, you're coming off of that, and you have the right-of-way that runs across that one piece of that frontage, right? And then you're gonna switch the right-of-way to the opposite side, is that correct?
Well, the entire road would have to be realigned. There wouldn't be a transition. There would be,
You would redo that whole intersection from there out?
VDOT would have to do that. That would not be part of our
Well,
project, but yeah.
Somebody would have to.
But yeah, the design, what I would anticipate is that curve from between Egbornsville Road, 729, and 785 would have to be reconfigured.
So on this example with the right-of-way that you have, the owner of the property, Stephen Corbin, correct?
Yes, sir.
He owns all the parcels down in addition to the ones directly across the street?
That's correct.
So is he willing to dedicate or reserve right-of-way along all of his frontage? So
That
that we
is
don't
not
have to
intended
go
with
and do
this
condemnation
rezoning.
or something at a later date?
That is not intended, that's not what's being agreed to with this rezoning application, and,
But it's up for negotiation.
yes, and that's why I say he has every intention of working a rezoning on all of those properties. And, the intention of my first exhibit, first page of the exhibit was to kind of give a feel for how the whole thing would fit together. Because if we're just looking at a little short piece,
Sure.
it doesn't make any sense to do that. So I wanted to give some kind of indication to the staff and to, of course, the commission and the board that, what we were proposing as far as offsetting only on one side could work and make sense. We do recognize that, making that connection to the existing 4-lane section and right-of-way along 694, that's gonna take some reworking, but honestly, VDOT doesn't have a design for it anyway, and no matter what you do, you're gonna end up having to do some revision and to tie those two together.
Yeah, I guess I
Okay.
was just thinking about, when you move it to the opposite side of the road, as opposed to splitting the difference. In other words, like if it was a 60-foot dedication, you could put 30 on one side, 30 on the other side.
Well, I mean, one of the things you gotta, as far as the scale, these curves are on the scale of like 2,000-foot radius, so, being able to make those transitions are reasonable in the speed. So I don't see any real reason. Of course, I haven't analyzed it and tried to design a road. It's not really my intention here, but I do want to leave this in a place where the ultimate designer is going to be able to make it work. And, and just looking at it, I just really, I've worked a couple of expert witness cases with, eminent domain, and I know that can be a problem with this house that's sitting there, and this kind of alleviates that. That's I think one of the major positives of what we propose.
For that property, based on the taking of the land.
Yeah,
Based on my
I don't even,
position.
I don't even want to guess.
Yeah, I don't think they have that.
But-
But either way, I guess, if he owns these properties from a county's perspective,
Right.
I would offer, if you want the rezoning of this, and you're gonna have future rezonings, then to basically do a reservation area for the whole frontage. Because the other thing with the reservation is you probably wanna do a deed associated with that land to tie that reservation area down, so that therefore you know what, it's set in stone to some extent from that. Because a lot of times when you do a plat of a reservation area, it gets a little bit complicated in legal issues. You can talk to the attorney about that. But those are, those are things to consider.
One of the things that that would concern me as far as doing that is, once you've gone to that extent, you've locked VDOT into an alignment. They don't have really any flexibility in making those
But-
changes, and we don't know
But
exactly.
if you don't do it, you're not given that commitment. So like, let's say we need an additional 15 feet, you haven't committed to that on that side of the road. So it doesn't really matter at this point, because all you're doing is reserving right-of-way for potential, which you'd be basically providing enough right-of-way for four-lane road. How they
Right.
get there,
Yeah.
to them, you know, to
Well,
some
I,
extent.
you know,
Yeah.
And
I
before
acknowledge
before we go
some
any
more
further too,
talking.
and just want to make sure, Sam, all of this is something that would have to be worked out before we do this, because there's some good points that are coming up, but then at the same time, you know, it's nothing that's going to happen tomorrow. So,
No,
and,
no.
you know,
Right.
to affect this, so I'm just wondering, I don't want to carry the conversation too far.
No, staff's main goal in the staff report was just to point out that, you know, we do show not only, you know, potential widening of that section to match, you know, future four-lane section there, but we do show a shared use path, you know, potentially on this. And Mr. Baines alluded to it as an urbanizing section, and I would agree with that. I mean, we're a rural section of road here, it's
Yes.
just a connector road. Once you get to here and you have existing zoning, as you can see on the map, and we do show other potential development as well, you're gonna get into an urbanizing, you know, situation where you're gonna see more development, where you're gonna typically see a curb and gutter, sidewalk. There's gonna be a lot of different things, that are gonna happen potentially in the future here. We just wanted to know that, you know, that the planning commission, the board to be reminded that, you know, we don't have full depth of right-of-way that we need right now to be able to accomplish that full picture there. The landowner,
That has to be
the
addressed.
current landowner owns not only the piece that they're seeking to rezone now, but here all the way to the intersection, as well as this piece here.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
May I speak? All right, so I believe that because we're planning, our term is planning, okay? Planning commission. We should be planning from that piece back. And I think it will incentivize VDOT to do something. I don't know what the plan is, I don't care. But I believe that if we ask for, or we carry the message to that landowner that we should have that reservation put in writing from that property over. And then if they four-lane it, then we're dealing with, everybody's got to cross over somewhere. So it just becomes, it's going to force their hand to make a plan, in my opinion. So I just want to state that I think it would be smart to go ahead and send that message that we would like to get the rest of that reservation on that north side. And it will enable this piece to be better. Otherwise, you're gonna have a berm. If the berm's not tall enough, you're gonna have to make it wide to get it taller. Then you're gonna encroach upon these 4 buildings or 3 buildings or whatever it is. You know, I just feel as though, you know, we should plan for the future. And this is the first commercial activity
Yeah.
on that side. And it's gonna be more. I agree, there will be more given the landowner that's there. And I think it's better to do a comprehensive-looking plan than to piecemeal it all the way back. That's all I gotta say. Thanks.
So that would mean that the other landowner who is not on this application would really control the movement of this application.
He's the landowner now, though. All of it.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah.
But, Mr. Chairman, you are correct. There could be subsequent, and most likely there would be subsequent rezoning actions with that landowner involved that would require a re-review and look at
Right.
the same issues that you're talking about now.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, so, but in reference to yours, any other, anything else you would like to add?
Well, I just wanted to address the VDOT comments, you know, in full. There were some, about the intersection of Maple Springs Road and Lane and Ira Hoffman. That was a VDOT constructed entrance. You know, VDOT mentioned there are no turn lanes there, and they are correct. We've done a warrant analysis of, that was another document that I provided a little bit late. But as far as the VDOT warrant analysis process or calculations, you know, based on our traffic, our trip generation, there is no left or right turn lane warranted at that intersection. So, you know, if you currently, VDOT had mentioned some some traffic counts that they had. What they recommended are actually incorrect. The one for Maple Springs Road, they said 400 vehicles a day. That's actually Richmond Road from the dead end to Rixeyville Road, which includes all the residential lots there. It also includes the county's public safety complex, that section of road, as what they gave me the traffic count for. There isn't a traffic count available for Maple Springs Road, Lane. And frankly, the only thing on it is the farm. That's the only residence farm that's on there. So just looking at the trip generation from that and what we would add to that, you know, the peak hour, you're only looking at about 5 or 6 vehicles. So there's no warrant for a left or a right turn lane at the Maple Springs, Ira Huffman Lane intersection. As far as it, and also the same at the entrance, the commercial entrance. Now, we did, it is what we provided or shown on our plan is a commercial entrance. It's 30 feet wide, curb and gutter.
Right.
It's skewed, it's not coming into Maple Springs Road at 90 degrees, and there's a reason for that, is because essentially Maple Springs Road is a dead-end road.
Yes.
Our entrance is basically going to be a partial access entrance, left in and right out only, because nobody is going to turn left out of our entrance to go
To the dead
down
end.
Richmond Road. Now, that's a kind of tricky about this road is that for a number of years it was barricaded. You couldn't even drive through there. And now I see that there's some gravel put down. I don't know what the situation is, but the way we've analyzed this is that Maple Springs is dead-end road. That all of our traffic is going to come from Ira Huffman Lane and go out to Ira Huffman Lane. So, as far as radii on the entrance, we're going to accommodate the 45-foot radii on radius on one side. It doesn't really need to be on the other side. It makes it a little difficult when the entrance is skewed. So
Yeah.
I think that's a final design
Oh, yeah.
issue, really, but
Okay.
that was one of the comments that they brought up. And I think, you know, as far as, you know, these turn lane warrants, generally speaking, self-storage is a very low traffic generator. So typically, we don't experience, you know, an issue with our traffic generation and triggering the turn lanes.
Okay.
And I think that's really about it. As far as the proffers, I do need to, some couple of things that, you know, I know the proffers are, you only have a couple of items there. Some things that we would, that the applicants would be willing to add is also, definitely this right-of-way reservation that we've been talking about. Also, staff brought up the proffering the connection to public water and sewer if that becomes available, and the applicants are certainly willing to do that and proffer that. You know, with some qualifying language, obviously, we want it to be within a certain distance of the property, and it's economical to connect to it. We don't have to do any additional utility extensions, that kind of thing. But if it's readily available, and the applicants are certainly willing to make those connections. I mean, just looking at the next door property, there's a stream that runs down there, and I know that's been contemplated as a route for sanitary sewer. So it makes sense to go through there, and if it's right next door to us, we'd certainly connect to it. I think that's everything I have. If you have any other questions for me, I'd be glad to
Okay.
take those.
All right, and we appreciate, you know, the answering of the questions, and you know, even from a future standpoint, as was said earlier, from a planning, you know, we want to make sure that when the opportunity comes, that we can address those things also. But I think, and we'll close that last question, Mr. Price, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a couple of other things that might be addressed in proffers. The Soil and Water Conservation District had suggested that a riparian buffer of 35 feet be preserved through the property, and I think you all had looked at maybe 25 feet. So maybe that's something that we need to proffer one way or another, and then also additional screening on Building E to protect that one house that's there, because,
Yes, sir.
you know, they,
I've
see it.
actually revised the concept plan to incorporate those two comments. The stream location, you know, to have that buffer really doesn't impact our property. 35 feet off of that stream really only impacts our property right up at the corner, right up next to Ira Huffman. I don't know if you can pop that concept plan back up, but on the upper right-hand corner there, that's really where we would have a 35-foot buffer that would impact our property. We can accommodate that. That's no problem at all to do that. As far as the screening, we have made some minor adjustments to the concept plan to add some evergreen screening along the property line. Now, the septic field has been located, and we can probably adjust that if we needed to put some evergreen screening along the property line. So those two things can be accommodated.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I just had a couple follow-up questions. So, as you enter the site at the entrance, did you run a truck turn analysis?
We have not.
So, what type of vehicles do you anticipate? Do you anticipate this, like, smaller vehicles, like, you know?
Well, we have to.
Not like WB-50s or anything like that?
No, it would be a 30-foot box truck, you know, single axle box trucks. Typically, you'll see here.
Okay. And then as far as the gravel area in the back where the stormwater detention facility is going to go, have you looked at potentially paving that area, since that would be considered a dustless surface?
We have, I mean, we could, but it's the applicant was preferring a gravel surface for whatever reason.
Yeah, there you go, park like RVs and things like that on it. Is that the intent based on what I
Yes.
saw there?
Mhm.
So if I look at the screening, did you do a view shed analysis or anything like that?
No.
So I think with a 3-foot berm, that's not a whole lot to block the view of RVs. So I don't know if you've looked at that or not. I saw the screening, but I didn't see something that actually looked at the elevations, cross-section showing what.
Yeah, we have not done
With the height
that.
of RV, are you gonna be, you know, because you're gonna see it from our Hoffman, especially as you come down that hill toward the low point there where the culvert crossing is. Was this is an actual survey that you all did?
No, this is Cedar Mountain Surveys did this survey.
Okay, but the location of where the stream is pretty accurate, would you say? It was surveyed?
I couldn't speak to
I mean,
that.
it's definitely off your property? Yes.
Oh, yes,
Is it?
yes. It's
Okay.
off our property, yes.
And so if you do move the right-of-way onto the opposite side, is there any additional impact because you're gonna have to extend the culvert on the opposite side of the street? Because if it was on your side, maybe that would have to be done a portion of this project anyway?
Either way you widen this road, it's going to have to be extended, whether you do it on our side or on the other side for culvert.
Yeah.
There's no culvert extension as part of our project, if that's a question.
You know, what I'm saying, if you had to do full frontage improvements on your side of the property as opposed to on the opposite side, you would have to extend that culvert potentially, if it falls onto your site. That's why I was asking.
Oh, yeah, that would,
When you do your site plan, you'd have to look at that.
if we were doing frontage improvements, but we're not
You're not
proposing
currently proffering frontage improvements, I understand.
along our Huffman?
Yes,
No.
understood. Just asking questions. And then, as far as the area that you have in the back, you're proposing a 50-foot setback, is that correct?
Yes, that's a required setback.
But you are gonna have paving and RVs parked in that area, is that correct?
Yes. In the building setback, yes.
In the building setback, so,
That's a building setback.
understand it's building setback, but you are parking larger structures in a building setback.
Well, they're not structures, but,
Since this is the
I don't know. It's-
not a site plan, it's not
Agree.
by right,
Yeah.
we can condition certain things.
I understand that, yeah.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
asking. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you. At this time, we now open the public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to speak to this application, please raise your hand. Okay. Being none, declare the public hearing closed. This time, any other discussion, or the chair entertain a motion?
I would like to discuss this for a few minutes here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm not comfortable with what we have here tonight. We need more, we need embellished. I didn't see something 5 minutes before, 20 minutes before we got in here, so there's something missing there. I'm not sure that some of the points that Mr. Kilby pointed out were adequately addressed, but I don't think I want to approve it now. I don't think it's that bad, but I think it needs some more work, and I would table it and let them come back with the, and I think you should check with that property owner to make sure that one of the proffers we can add, he supports, and that would be the reservation of some right-of-way on that north side. So that's how I'm looking at it. You know, there's no frontage improvement on Ira Hoffman or such, but I believe I would need some more massaging of this information, and if we could table it and get that in here.
Okay, any other discussion?
I would agree with Mrs. Thornhill in that regard.
Okay.
The other thing that I didn't ask for was an environmental study. Did anybody do an environmental study on the property in terms of wetlands or aquatic plant material or anything like that? Because I don't know if that came up in the application. Yeah, yes, we did. You did? Okay. So are there wetlands and aquatic plant material, geomorphic material on site?
As far as I know, and I can get the report for you guys, there's nothing anywhere we would not propose.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, nothing else? And we just want to make sure that you understand that a lot of information has been given to you to kind of make this project work for, you know, all around. But there are suggestions and information that we given to you, because when it comes down to the final part of it, you are the ones who's got to say what you are proffering to us, okay? Or to this application, or with this application, so. But you've got some good ideas out here tonight, I hope, okay? So, no other discussion, Chair entertain a motion.
I would be happy to make a motion, I guess.
We don't have to add on the other stuff.
All right, so I move that we table this until the next meeting so that you can answer some of our questions more specifically. And I think you kind of have a list of what we're talking about. And I don't know the case number. What was our, I gotta put that in.
It's actually two case numbers, and I
Oh, here
didn't,
they are.
and I apologize, I failed to mention that the reason for that is not only they are seeking to rezone for the use itself, but the use in that zoning district requires a special use permit or conditional use permit on top of that for the outdoor storage component.
Right.
So it's Z-460-23, and then the CUP number is U-2243-23.
Okay. So I would be referring to that case and ask that we table that till our next meeting, whatever date that is. And that will give you, if you feel like you can get those answers by then.
January.
Okay. Yeah, the date of it is January
10th.
10th.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Is 30 days sufficient? Is there a chance that you couldn't get it done in 30 days?
It's not really
Mr. Chairman,
that much.
the applicant has been working on these response, and he just wasn't able to get those response quick enough for us to really fully analyze,
Yes,
but
yes.
I think with the condition or the additional conversation tonight, they'll have a little bit more to work on, but they're well on their way, in staff's opinion, to accommodating that, so.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion?
That's one last question, Sam. Was the health department, did they approve the septic field?
They would have to do that, Mr. Commissioner Kilby, with any type of site plan. I don't know if the applicant's done any soil analysis for that septic field yet. They may have. It's a pretty small area, so I don't know if anything's been done or not.
Okay, all right. No other discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motions, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, all right. Get that, Morgan? All right. We will, table it for 30 days, and we'll see you all here on January the 10th. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. All right, now we'll move, to our next case.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have case U 224223-1. It's a request by Andrew Campbell of Black Hill Granite for a conditional use permit to allow the construction and operation of a dimensional stone quarry per Article 3, Section 3.2-2.13 of the zoning ordinance in accordance with Article 17, use permits of the zoning ordinance. The property is partially zoned A1 agricultural and partially zoned HI heavy industrial and is accessed off, well, that's not correct. It's in the Cedar Mountain Magisterial District.
Uh-huh.
And it's off of 615. It's found on tax map 74, parcels 59 and 75, parcel 15.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the screen, on the, we'll start over. Members of the commission, on the screen, the parcel highlighted in red is the parcels actually that we'll be looking at for conditional use permit. You'll remember Black Hill Granite, some of you will anyway, had been before, I think a couple years ago. I don't remember how many years ago now. Time's going by quickly, but Mr. Campbell, Black Hill Granite, had rezoned this portion of this property to process granite. Mr. Campbell has started that operation and has been in operation for some time and has been successful in that. That is not being requested to be changed. That will remain the same. That zoning exists today, and that will continue to operate. What is being requested tonight is an addition of a use permit, which is required in the A1 zone to do actual mining activity or pulling the granite out of the ground to process. The area that the applicant did submit a concept plan that shows the area that they potentially would use for that, which would be some of the remaining area that they don't use today, which is right here, to pull granite, and then potentially a refuse area on this part of the property here. The aerial, in staff's opinion, kind of tells a story for the area in general as far as this use and the history of this use. You have an active quarry to the north. You can see one here as well. You have, I don't think this one is active any longer right now, but you can see there's historic block granite mining as well over here. And then we have additional gravel mining and other types of quarry activities in the general area. The applicant is proposing a block granite application here to pull the stone from the property and then ultimately to actually process on the property, which in Culpeper is unique. To date, the stone has been brought onto the property, then processed, made to look beautiful, and then leaves the site. This would add an element of the operation where the stone would actually be pulled from the property and then still processed on the property and then leave. In theory, you're going to eliminate a few trucks coming into the site. But VDOT did look at it just with and Soil and Water Conservation did as well. The applicant doesn't use Will Hoyt Lane, even though the property does have access or legal access to Will Hoyt Lane. But there is a existing commercial entrance right on 615 near the intersection of Will Hoyt Lane and 615. But the applicant does use that for primary functions of the property today and would continue to do that. You did have in your package an application for a waiver from VDOT to potentially improve that entrance some more. In staff's opinion, I don't know that that's absolutely necessary, but if the applicant decides to pursue that, we have no objection to that, and moving with VDOT to pursue that. If you were to look at the entrance today, I think that it functions fine. In our opinion, we've had no issues with that entrance to date, and we continue to operate well with this potential application. Soil and Water Conservation District did point out a couple of comments and recommendations, and staff does agree with those, and I think the applicant can incorporate those into their future design or site plan for the property. And that included a riparian buffer setback, a stream setback, and then they had some other minor comments, but it was mainly with the stream setback and then a potential stream crossing, and that would come with any site plan in the future. In general, the comprehensive plan shows this area to remain as is as far as agricultural rural area. The site is located in a less populated area of the county. It does have the existing industrial use as far as the processing of the granite on the property today, as I mentioned. It is adjacent to existing other quarries, and the property is fairly well screened as well, and has the ability to keep that screening with this proposal. One thing that staff did point out, and the applicant may be able to address this in a little more detail, we didn't receive a lot of information about the noise that could be associated with the activity. Staff in general would like to see a little more specific information, and like I said, the applicant may be able to address that. Like I mentioned, we do agree with the Soil and Water Conservation District that the applicant should try to propose or incorporate riparian buffers on the property for the activity. There was a refuse pile, and the applicant did provide a concept plan that shows that area here onto what I would call the corner of the property. The applicant may be able to describe in more detail what may or may not happen in the middle. It may just be left alone, which is fine. But staff did have just general questions about what that area could become or not become in the future. But that is not a big concern by staff either way. The refuse area, just keep in mind, any of these operations also are regulated not only by the county as you're required to get a conditional use permit, but the Department of Energy, or DMME, as it formerly was known. The applicant would have to comply with all requirements for the Department of Energy for any quarrying activity or mining activity as well. Mr. Chairman, those are the few things that I wanted to highlight with this application. Black Hill Granite is here and can answer questions as well. And this is advertised for a public hearing. So.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. At this time, the applicant come forth and give you full name for the record.
It's good to stretch the legs. Andrew Campbell with Black Hill Granites. Thank you guys for taking the time tonight to be here. I think Sam touched on most of the points. It's an existing operation that we're just looking to expand and take traffic off the roads rather than buying in materials from elsewhere in large part. Sparsely populated area of the county. It's the highest and best use. It's why there are 3 other quarries out there. The old Aston Quarry across the street, it's currently permitted as a aggregate quarry, so they could come in and start that again at some point. They're from Maryland. I don't think they have any plans to. In terms of any concerns, I've been working with staff on this for a bit of time, and noise is one item that they wanted to touch on. And so with quarrying, with what we do, we don't use a lot of explosives. It's not loud. That runs counter to our goal, which is having the largest block possible. That's where we get value. So in terms of dynamite usage, explosives, it's absolutely minimal, and all that's regulated. The main piece of equipment you're using out there is an electric wire saw. I asked the manufacturer of a saw about decibel levels, and he could not give an answer. He said he'd never actually been asked before, but he went out to their factory with a decibel meter, and with the safety cover off and the meter right next to the motor, it was at 82. As a comparison, that's what your hair dryer is at home. I went out to our little John Deere riding mower, and it was 94. And so, as well screened as we are, I feel like it's probably not a huge concern in terms of the noise, how that's going to radiate out. Will it be heard elsewhere? Potentially. But at volumes that would be obtrusive, I don't think so. And I think it also would be within the county's ordinance, frankly, which I think it was, what, 85? 85 for light industrial, 80 for commercial out there. And then in HI, it's exempt. Otherwise, in terms of the comments from soil and water, I have no problem with the 35 feet with the creek that goes across the top to have a setback there. I was on the soil and water board for 8 years, so I support what they do, and I'm happy to incorporate their feedback. In terms of the area between the bubbled area and then the south, no specific plan. I suppose we could have left the bubbled area coming all the way down. With an operation like this, you need to have a certain amount of flexibility, just as you see with neighbors around that do something similar. You follow where the material is. The thought being that towards the south, if you can leave as much of the land open as possible and undisturbed as possible at any given time, try to keep any extra waste down and away from your operation. Try to be forward-thinking in that respect. Likewise, across the creek on the north, there are some fields, but it's mainly woods that we're surrounded by there. That would be used for block storage, pallet storage, to be able to serve the fabrication operation. So you can cross the creek, have material stored there, and then when they're needed, you can load trucks coming back across that north side where there's already a right-of-way for the power company that goes through there. Any sort of creek crossing, we would work with DMME, Department of Energy now, and of course the Army Corps of Engineers. This is one of the most tightly regulated industries around here. They're out regularly, checking on things for safety. For environmental concerns, they do not announce when they come, they just show up. So it keeps everyone out there in this industry doing their best, and I think keeping a really high standard. So I'm happy to answer any and all questions I can to help.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay.
I just had a couple. One is, are you planning to do any blasting on site?
The only blasting would be very, very limited. It's to free the bottom of a block. It's not, when you think of quarrying, you think of something like an aggregate quarry, Cedar Mountain stone, for example, Lux stone. They want pieces as small as possible. It makes less work on their crushers. We're the opposite. Dynamite is our enemy. You'd only use it in really a must-use situation, so it's very infrequent and very low quantities.
Are you currently doing any blasting?
No.
I just, we've had other cases that we've had issues with blasting, so that's why I'm asking that, because of the noise and the adjacent properties and things of that nature. So the question is from a fire marshal standpoint or state fire code, things like that, following all the blasting regulations associated with it, I just didn't know. If you haven't done any, have you looked into that, or you plan to do a lot, just understanding that. Do you have an industrial SWIP currently on site?
An industrial,
SWIP, stormwater pollution prevention plan?
no, and all of that's what can be handled at a concept plan level, site plan, excuse me, and then also before they would actually issue you a permit, DMMA, all of your training plans, your environmental plans, everything has to be in place prior to them moving. And so they regulate anything from the environmental part all the way down to if you have a man power washing the side of a block, you have to have a plan in place for how he's gonna do that safely. I mean, it's pretty inclusive.
And then haul room. So how many vehicles are gonna be coming in and out? I think the ITE had like 35 vehicles. Is that counting any trucks hauling material out?
That's all inclusive.
That's all inclusive.
Dimension quarries are very light on roads. It's aggregate quarries that create your traffic, create your wear. And so you're looking at best, a couple trucks going out and employees, so your counts are really low. In terms of making the entrance bigger, we're trying to be forward-looking and to have as safe and big as an entrance as we can. It's certainly functional. There have been no accidents. We own the property adjacent to the entrance there as well. There's a house to make sure that We have clean line of sight leaving the property. But no, the trip generation numbers that the engineer provided, that's all in.
Did you haven't done any blasting surveys today, seismic surveys or anything like that?
No, I mean, it's actively blasted out there at those quarries nearby, but again, our neighbors on, this would be the south side, right side of 615, as little as possible, because it breaks up the stone that you're trying to use. And if it has even a little micro crack, it's of no use. And that's the other reason why we're interested in really being able to use our own materials, that there's a fair amount of waste that comes with dimension stone, and we have the facility to actually increase the yield tremendously versus other people that they can only sell the big pieces. We can use right down to the small stuff.
Okay. Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Campbell, I think I read that the total area covered by the CUP request is like 52 acres. So how big is the ground disturbance area? I mean, I guess you would start, you would initiate the quarry, then it grows over time, but I mean, how much land are you clearing, or how much material do you need to move in order to get the operation started?
You don't have a good answer to that until you get in the ground, I'm afraid. That there are certainly areas where stone comes out of the ground. It's what has drawn people to that area for years and years, decades, whenever the first quarry was started out there. In terms of what you find underneath, unfortunately, when you have any sort of, and even you can core, but that's not gonna really give you any indication on what's there. And so all you can do is a little bit of intuition. You talk to others that have done this before, and you use your best judgment to start where you think you're gonna have the most success, and that's what we think we've highlighted. The 52, 53 acres, it's just the total of the two parcels there. It includes the HI property, it includes the area there at the bottom that wouldn't actually be used on the other side of that lower creek. But just for the sake of ease, we put the whole thing in there.
Okay.
But we wouldn't be clearing 52 acres to start with. There's no economic reason to do so.
Yeah.
And so we start where we start and then branch out, and hopefully you don't have to go too much wider, and you can find success right there close.
I see, yeah, because what I'm thinking is if the saws don't cause a lot of noise, if you've got a lot of heavy equipment in there moving dirt and looking for where to dig down, I mean, that can create some potential noise. So I don't know if you have, I guess you don't know going into it how much of that type of activity you'd have right off the bat until you start digging.
Right, and I think that a lot of that's kind of a one-time or done in limited quantities. If you're underway and you have 10 acres cleared, and let's say that you wanted to expand out a couple more acres, I think you're 100% right that you would have more noise at that point, more activity to clear 2 acres than you would otherwise with a few men quarrying. But you're talking about an activity that would last for probably a week or 2 weeks to be able to do that amount of work. And so the disturbance on the area, the neighborhood, I think in the long run is pretty negligible in that sense.
Any idea how close the nearest inhabited house is to where your activity would be happening?
Yeah, the area, can you pull back up the aerial, please? If you see where the HI is, between the HI and 615, there are a handful of houses close to 615 there. Couple football fields.
Yeah.
Closest houses up there, the train tracks run parallel, which is way louder than anything that we would ever do. In terms of, on Wilhoit, there are 2 houses in the back. You see a clearing, and then a second clearing to the right there. The house on the right would be the closest, and if you just drew a straight line across to where we're talking about, you'd be looking at almost 3 football fields. So it's quite a distance. The house on the left with the larger clearing there at the end of Wilhoit, no change, that it's currently, call it 1,500 feet from the corner of the HI property. If you draw a line to the right, to the conditional use property, it's within 25 feet. I mean, it's really close.
Yeah.
So, as Sam noted, there's quite a bit of natural buffer that is in place out there already.
Okay.
And then to the right, you can see there's there's nothing there, and then it's quarries to the northeast.
Okay.
That you usually see the bottom of.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else?
Do you
I just have a
see
question.
any potential impacts to the neighboring housing, either up closer to 615 or further back, with potential well issues? Because I'm assuming if you're mining, you're also going to be cutting more than you are now, using more water than you are now. So I don't know if that all sits on the same aquifer that the wells are drawing off of. I mean, we certainly don't want people's wells going dry out there. And given this past year with the lovely drought we had on top of it.
Hopefully everyone's attuned to that after this year.
Yeah, I mean, water's a huge concern for me.
All right. So out here, I can't tell you the exact, we have one well right now that feeds the building, and I think it produces 8 gallons a minute, which doesn't do a whole lot. And so anything inside there already runs on a water reclamation system. It's closed loop. If we need to add more, we supplement from the well, but it runs in, chemicals drop out, it settles, water recirculates. Same process for the quarry. The wire saws need a little bit of water, not much. We'd probably drill one additional well out there. Typical depth is maybe 200 feet. We wouldn't expect a lot of water from that. We don't need much. With dimension stone also, these aren't deep quarries. The deeper you go, the harder it is to get materials up and out. It's expensive. You're using cranes. You're having to drive it out. That's why they tend to spread out a bit. The quarry just to the north there, Virginia Mist, is a good example that at its deepest, 50 feet maybe. So you're not coming anywhere close to going down to where wells are really drilled. And in terms of dealing with water within the quarry itself, typically you have fire retention ponds that are used. So, and quarrying is a slow process. You asked about the development of it, that you wouldn't look like that for years and years and years. That's decades of work that you're looking at to the northeast. But even when you can have a little bit of a pit there, you're pumping that water into a holding pond, any sort of sediment. There aren't chemicals that are used, it's just the stone itself that's settling back down. Water can flow into a secondary pond, and from there you're pumping that water back to be able to recirculate. So it's just a really small drain, if at all, on the natural resources there. We try to be as self-sufficient as possible with just the existing resource without having to constantly run a well. The nice thing about the wire saws, that they don't need clean water. There's certain machines that you have to have very clean water for processing. Not the case for those wire saws. You can run the cloudy water right back through, and it serves its purpose to keep the wire quiet, clean, and cool so it doesn't overheat.
Okay. Mr. Burton, I think you had
In your comments, you answered my question. You called the quarry to the north Virginia Mist, right?
Sure.
Okay, so I remember visiting that for their application. So the saws didn't, this is not a technical term, it didn't seem that loud. But instead of the blasting, didn't they use air or bags or something to make cut, and they go pop, and then, or try to catch it, you don't want it to drop and break?
There are different techniques. It's kind of neat to watch once they've opened something up and when they're tipping it over. And so you're right, they use airbags for that to be able to, if they have a wall and they've sawed down, drilled down, there are different methods. Sawing's quicker, quieter. That's what we typically would do, and it's what they do as well. But then when it comes to, I call it a ledge, when they tip that, some with airbags to be able to open that.
Okay, thank you.
very knowledgeable, man. Anyone, Lance, I think, did you have a question?
No, I was just thinking I'm still thinking about the blasting.
Okay.
I'm thinking about
All right.
Bureau of Reclamation
Okay.
and requirements for mining.
But no other questions, we'll, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you all for your time.
We now open the public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to speak to this application, raise your hand and come forth and present your questions. No one? Okay. It's easy. We declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners, any other discussion? If not, the chair entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion.
Go right
move
ahead, sir.
that The Planning Commission recommend that for case number U-2242-23-1, for conditional use permit to allow the construction and operation of a dimension stone quarry, that the Planning Commission recommend approval and forward to the board.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. We will send it forward to the board with recommendation of approval. Okay, all right. Okay. Neil, next item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the last item is an amendment to the subdivision ordinance. Planning Commission will consider an amendment to the Culpeper County subdivision ordinance, Appendix B. This amendment would simplify and shorten the review process for subdivision plans. Specifically, all preliminary and final subdivision plans are proposed to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Department instead of the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Currently, only divisions that are considered minor divisions by code are processed administratively by staff.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a subdivision text amendment. We don't do a lot of those. This is something that the Board of Supervisors did refer themselves to the subcommittee, which is their Rules Committee, and instructed staff to look at developing an ordinance or revision to the existing ordinance that basically would allow all subdivisions to be a ministerial processing act. Right now, minor divisions and family divisions are limited to that process where staff is the sole reviewer. Obviously, we get involved in reviewing agencies that you're used to as far as VDOT, the Health Department, Soil and Water Conservation District if necessary. And those agencies weigh in and have to approve a plan, and then staff can approve it. The meat of the subdivision ordinance is not changing. There's no changing of lot sizes as far as zoning is concerned. You're not changing the number of lots you can do on any given property. It's just all about processing. And this text amendment basically takes the process of requiring a public hearing with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for all major subdivisions away. Instead, the process would be administrative. You'd get the agency reviews. Staff would, once those are secured, staff could approve the plan in accordance with the subdivision ordinance. The only time that it would potentially come to the Planning Commission and/or Board of Supervisors would be at an appeal. So if the subdivider did not like the outcome of a decision by the zoning administrator, they could file an appeal, and that could go to the Board of Supervisors. And that's a similar process today, except that would be after a Planning Commission review at that point. The other minor changes I would identify as cleanup or clarification or wording changes, but doesn't substantially change anything in the ordinance. The substantive change is just how we would process divisions. In staff's opinion, it simplifies the process, which is always a good goal when you're talking about local ordinances. And I think that it would eliminate some frustration with the public process that we have with subdivisions. Rezonings, you're used to having public hearings, and by law we're required, and we get a lot of good comments and we get feedback, and the board and the Planning Commission take that into consideration. Once something is zoned and the board has made that decision and someone applies for a subdivision, normally it's a ministerial act. The way we've had our ordinance for years is it opens up that public hearing realm. And yes, there's been some positive feedback through that process over the years, but generally what you see is someone expecting that the Planning Commission or the board can turn it down. And that's just not the case through the subdivision process. And the board sensed that frustration, and then wanted to just simplify the process, it would actually take about 60 to potentially 90 days a public hearing process away to shorten the subdivision process in general. Not going to necessarily increase the number of subdivisions. That's governed by zoning, and that's not what we're looking at tonight. It's just the process itself. So I don't have any fancy pictures for this. It's a text amendment which was fully posted, You have a red line, that was posted, as well as a clean version of what could potentially be the new text. But the red line shows all the potential changes.
So it's for by right. We're not, it's not, no rezonings.
Right. No,
Yeah,
it would be for anything that someone could do by right with their
Yeah.
zoning today.
Any other questions for staff?
Just one clarification. If zoning, if they did do an appeal, does it come to the planning commission or just to the board?
I think the way we have it currently drafted, it would just go to the board of supervisors.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
So I have a question. I'm looking at the red line version, page 16 and 29, 612.4.
612.4.
So 612 talks about 10-acre divisions, but 612.4 is talking about 50, so I'm just trying to figure out why we got
Yeah, so that
50s
that
and
is
10s.
that is a potential new section. And I'm gonna let Mr. Drumheller kind of explain the intent of that section, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I'm not saying. Mrs. Reams, basically, oftentimes, I'll have landowners that come to me and want to create, say 2 10-acre lots off the road, and they have a 90-acre or 50-acre or above residue that, they want to retain, and they can't divide, by right. Well, current code requires me to, have a drain field found for that large lot. And if it's going to be used for agriculture, and they're willing to state that on the plat, we found that there was no need to make them find drain fields for something that they have no intention of using for residential purposes, when typically A1 and RA property, one of the primary uses is also agriculture. So this would allow me to approve a lot that was specified for agricultural purposes only. And then it would take away the requirement for a drain field to be found.
Yeah, and if they go to build a house, then they can go get the drain field. You don't have to have it up front.
And, yeah.
okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Sam, as I read this, I was trying to think what subdivisions we've looked at over the last couple of years that had this been in place, we would not have looked at. I think Williams Mill out on Osmower, that was a rezoning and then went. and then we
Yeah,
had
that's a
the-
great example. So the rezoning still would come through the normal public process, but the subdivision on the back end would stay with staff if this were to go through.
Yeah. I think Kite Acres and North Ridge Estates. So we would not have seen those.
That's
but-
correct. That's correct.
Okay. Could there be any value in the planning commission review those, but not the board? I can see us taking a little bit of a load off the board's plate. But maybe, because I thought we had some good discussions with those subdivisions, so.
We do, and there is, and as I mentioned, there is some positive value in that discussion. But at the end of the day, you have to have a willing developer at that point. Because at the end of the day, they only have to meet the minimum standards that are in your subdivision ordinance. You have a similar process to what you're suggesting, Commissioner Price, with the site plans. So site plans, some site plans, not all site plans, some site plans are purely administrative, but there are some site plans that do make it to the commercial, for example, will come to the planning commission, but they don't go to the board. So that is a possibility, and there are some jurisdictions that do that. Our instruction from the board was to look at a purely administrative process, so that's what we proposed, and that's what's coming out of the Rules Committee. But that certainly could be a suggestion from the planning commission.
And
If we make this change, will this put us in line with what most counties do? Or do you have any idea?
It varies. It varies. Larger jurisdictions, yes. I know next door at Madison County, for example, they look at even a minor division. It has to go before the board of supervisors. So it varies across the state, but generally it's considered a ministerial or administrative process, and should be.
And if I might add to that, Mr. Chairman, that response, in cases, say, where Mr. Boyce came in with Bentley Ridge up on 211, where we were able to secure a turn lane that wasn't warranted, through that public process, that would be something that I would consider. And if the applicant weren't agreeable to doing something like that, that would be the point where they could go to the board you know, and be aggrieved by one of my decisions, you know, regarding public safety in that instance. So there would be that recourse for folks. If I were, you know, if it would be perceived that I was going beyond, you know, the scope of the subdivision ordinance.
Was that a rezoning or that was by right?
I believe that was by right.
Okay.
And they agreed to that because it was in the
Okay.
public interest.
Yeah, I think this process does need to be streamlined, and I've tried to use the process too, but mine have all been 5 cuts or less, so it's not so bad. But I think that it's a good thing that you guys, you know the rules. I mean, there's a ton of rules, and then I don't care to field questions that are really technical that you know. And when we have the public hearing process, or we know the meeting's coming up, they're calling up and they're like, well, can this and this and this? And I'm like, you know, that's not our forte and it's not our everyday job. So I think it's good if you just handle it that way.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Only thing I had to add was like Prince William County, they have planning commission for anything over 100 lots. So when they have large subdivisions, that's when they look at it. They don't look at the small stuff, but they do look at the large subdivisions. That could affect the adjacent existing property, the traffic and things like that.
Data centers.
Yeah,
But are they by right or
they're by right. Preliminary plans, they review preliminary plans that are over 100 acres, or over 100 lots, sorry.
So Sam, does this stop at 49 lots, or is it any
No.
size?
No,
Any
it
division?
would be for any size subdivision, the way it's proposed right now.
Okay. 350 lots.
Yeah, so, you know, Williams Mill, I think, was 274, 269, I think is what it ended up being. That could, under the current proposal, be approved, you know, administratively.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Being none, public hearing.
Yes, this is advertised for, yes, sir.
Okay.
We do need to do that.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this application? If not, declare the public hearing closed. Any other discussion? Not, the chair entertain a motion.
Go ahead, Walter.
Mr. Chairman,
Your turn.
Figured it was coming yours.
it's my turn. In regard to Planning Commission review of proposed subdivision text amendment STA-2-23-1, I move we recommend it to the board for acceptance.
Have a second? Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise? No. Okay. Get that? Mr. Price? Oh, Mr. Price. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll send it forward to the board with the recommendation of approval. Any other business?
No, Mr. Chairman, I missed last month, so I'm going to do it this month. We had 3 commissioners that were up for renewal. We had 3 commissioners that applied to be back on, and those were Commissioner Burton, Commissioner Kilby, and Chairman Reeves. So
Yes.
congratulations, you were appointed, I know you all know that, but just wanted to make sure everyone else knew that you were appointed for another 4 years. So congratulations. Thank you for your service, too.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Katie?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise. This meeting is adjourned. Y'all have a happy holiday.